It's that time once again, folks. We are back with Erika Brown, the publisher and editor of The Cricket, from her office in downtown Manchester by the Sea to tell us all about things going on in Essex and Manchester. How are you, Erika?
Hey Corey, how are you?
I'm great. Enjoying summer, which is nice. I'm going away for a little bit, so I'm looking forward to that too. You're my last
Oh my God.
assignment before I take off, Erika. I'm having you know
I'm
that.
the, I'm the one thing standing between you and freedom.
That's it. Let's make it quick. Nah. But right off the top now, a cool story I just found out before we went on the air is that you just did a great piece on the paper house over in
Yeah,
Rockport.
it's so funny because we were just talking about it and literally I just wrote a small piece on it and for the paper and I was talking to you about it and before we did this and you were telling me that that's going to be your next Timeline Cape Ann, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I was visiting it with some friends, and one of them said, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if Corey Kukuru's ever done this for his Timeline Cape Ann."
Really? Oh,
So funny.
cool.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So yes, this is a newspaper. I mean, it's a home, it's a cottage built in the 1920s. I don't want to steal your thunder, but
Mm-mm.
it's called the Paper House. It is a museum. Although it's a museum with a $2 voluntary donation, and it's a self-guided tour that could take you less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
However, and it's also in a thickly settled kind of interior residential neighborhood in Rockport. So it's like the interior of the Cape. You know, most people don't know it because they only drive around the parameter of Cape Ann. But if you got to, I think it's Pigeons Cove, right? It's right at Pigeons
Yeah.
Cove. Instead of like looking to the right or the left at the ocean, go the opposite way and go right inside, and you'll find your way to the paper house. It is goes back to the 1920s. It is a house that was built almost entirely out of more than 100,000 newspapers. Let's say that again. A house that was built in the 20s that is still standing, right?
Yeah.
After all these, the gale-bitten granite coast of Rockport and this little house of 700 square feet, a little cottage built by an engineer, a Swedish engineer. And a lot of people may or may not know, I don't know, that much of Rockport and the quarrying that happened in Rockport happened because of Finnish and Swedish immigrants. That was a big part of sort of the history. And this was a Swedish engineer by the name of
Ellis Stenman.
that's right, Ellis Stenman. And his family still owns it, but he did it almost on a lark. Apparently, he read 3 newspapers a day and he hated waste.
Apparently, yeah.
So he just, I know, I hate waste. I'll build a house out of newspapers. So in any case, it is okay. So the truth is, it's got a wooden frame, it's got a real door, real windows, and it's got a real roof. So that's sort of the bones of it. But he was a mechanical engineer, and he figured out how to create these. He had a system. He had a little machine that created these logs out of. He would roll tightly the newspaper, and then he made an adhesive out of flour, apple peels, and a third thing. So it was like a natural glue. And you'd think the whole thing was gummed up with glue. No, no, no. He didn't like waste, remember? So he would tie them up into these rolls, and then he would sort of zip them at the end with this adhesive. And it took him about 8 years in the 20s to do it. If you can still, and there's like almost a varnish on top, you can still see the interior walls, you can still see the things. It's a great story. One of my favorite things, and this is something I don't know what you're going to go into with Timeline Cape Ann. I mean, have you started it yet?
Honestly have just started the research because to make a real long story short, I didn't think I'd have enough time to do the Intertown Twilight League because the season ends in a couple of weeks and I've got to go away for a bit. So I needed something before we get into fall election coverage, something easy. So I'm out to them. I've been doing my own research, but I'm going to get over there in a week or two.
Well, the family still owns it. We talked briefly with a family member who happened to be, because their house is next door, and we were kind, but we left her alone. You know what I mean? Because she must get hit up all the time. But anyway, very nice. One thing that you probably won't go into with your research, but it occurred to me just personally. He also made furniture, which you'll go into out of things, and he would theme them. So yeah, a desk was made out of all of newspapers that were covered the Charles Lindbergh transoceanic historic flight. And
Wow.
it's got a picture above it of Charles Lindbergh. And, you know, like, so there were themes to the inside. Like one, I think the clock was made out of nothing but Christian Science monitors or international editions, because neighbors would chuck in and give them things. And by the late 1920s, apparently it was already a curiosity. So it was already kind of a museum. And he kept going by creating furniture. Well, this is in the 20s. One of the things that has a theme with the furniture is they're in octagonal shapes. Like there's like octagonal shapes. You'll see it when you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of the Henry Davis Sleeper House. Do you remember the Henry Davis Sleeper House on Eastern Point? It's a
Oh yeah,
historic
Sleeper McCann. Yeah.
thing. And the Sleeper McCann House, I'm sorry, yes. And that's out on Eastern Point. That's also another local museum that's such a gem. But one of the rooms there, and Henry Davis Sleeper essentially was he created modern day interior design as a profession. You know, he's one of those. I mean, he wasn't the reason, but he's really influential with modern interior design. So it's a great thing to go to. But one of the rooms is called the octagonal room. It's an octagonal room and the furniture is octagonal and that also dates back to the 20s. So I'm wondering if maybe in the 20s there wasn't this trend towards like octagonal stuff. But anyway, that was
Yeah.
a little apropos of nothing.
No, but and also in that era too, it's when people were using newspaper for insulation. So that's why you
Yes.
find it buried in walls when you're, when you're taking down the drywall and everything else, and you find those treasures in there too. So yeah, interesting stuff. So I'm looking forward to dig into it. I'm so glad that you got a chance to meet them and check out the place too. It's awesome.
Now, I can't wait to see Timeline Cape Ann because I think that's a great little story. I think
Yeah.
most, and by the way I found it was because I have an Atlas Obscura, which actually shows you awesome things to do in Africa, South America, you know, Asia. And guess what's in it? The
Huh.
paper house in Rockport, Massachusetts.
No kidding. Very cool. Awesome. Okay. Another nice story here too is North Shore Magazine's Best of North Shore Awards.
Yeah, the bonds, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're called, and everyone puts out their plea for a vote, you know, in early summer. It just came out, and I don't know what struck you about it. I'll tell you what struck me about it was how many businesses that won Best of that are in Essex.
Mm.
Did you notice that? Like Manchester had a couple. We had Bravo by the Sea, got Best Pizza. And of course, Bravo is not just in Manchester, it's also now on Main Street in Gloucester. So maybe that's why. But Bravo's great, Beth Panagos. And then also, oh, the Essex County Country Club got Best Private Golf Club.
It did? Like,
Maybe, I don't know if it was Best Private Golf Club or Best Private Golf Course. I don't know which one it was. Whatever it was, they won, which was great. But then Essex won all these awards. Like, I mean, it's almost like too many to mention. It was, We Dream in Color won, a portrait photographer won, The Village won, Woodman's won, the Great Marsh Brewing Company won. I feel like I'm missing out, like I'm missing people, but those are all people that all won. And I was really pleasantly surprised. So, shout out to Essex. Now, of course,
yeah.
Gloucester won a ton too, but you expect Gloucester to win a ton, like the Beauport won a ton, like Best Staycation, Best Cocktail, Best whatever. So they won, but that's expected. But it was not expected to me that Essex would do as well as it did. So I think that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
if I
I'm
missed
always
anybody, please, I'm sorry.
I'm blown away by how many categories they can manage for that. It's endless. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
it is
work.
kind of endless. It is.
Mm.
But whatever.
Yeah, well, great stuff there.
Congratulations, all. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
And cheers to Essex. And lastly, Erica, there is a new fire chief.
Yeah. James Jake, he goes by Jake McNeely. And he started this, he's taken over from Jason Cleary, who left at the end of last month. So Jake has started. He's young. It seems like he's going to be just such a great addition. I talked to him. He was sworn in last week or week and a half ago, something like that. And he's off and running on his new job. He's actually a resident of Essex, which I think is really kind of nice because, Manchester and Essex have that kind of, beyond just the school district, there's sort of a loose, public safety connection. Paul Francis and Todd Fitzgerald got their starts and their careers together, and now they are, the chiefs of police in both towns, so there's sort of that connection. And now we have it with Jake McNeely. And one of the things that I think is going to be very powerful about him is he is a specialist in EMT training. And if you really think about it, the fire departments, at least in Manchester, and I'm sure in Essex as well, it's not really so much about the fire safety, although that's a huge part of it, but most of their calls are for ambulance services and EMT services, and a lot of training is necessary, et cetera. So it's a real nice kind of feather in our cap that we have somebody who is so strong in that. He started a school of EMT training in Danvers, which I think he still is a part of. And so he's really the guy. So it's great. So welcome to Jake McNeely.
Yeah, very cool. Congratulations there. All right, Erika, get back to your summer. We'll catch up with you this time next week.
Listen, have a great rest. I can't wait to see you when you get back.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.